Today we're going to be looking at the volume of a cone. The volume of a cone, the equation is 1/3 times pi times radius squared times height, or volume equals pi r squared h divided by 3. I really prefer this equation to the representation here. They both mean the same thing, but I like the way that this is set up. It's less confusing. So we're still going to be looking at a radius and a height, which is the same requirements that we were looking at when we had a cylinder. Okay? So, and if you look at this top equation, that is the equation for a cylinder. And we're just dividing it by 3. That is the equation for the cone. Okay? Now, let's look at this particular example. So I recommend every time that you're working one to make sure that you are writing the equation. Volume equals pi r squared h over 3. Now, we need the radius and we need the height. Well, the radius comes from the circle shape. So they give us a radius of 3 and a height. Well, if we were to turn this on its side, the height of the cone would be 12. So substituting these in, we get this particular equation. Pi, the radius is 3 squared, times 12 divided by 3. Now, there's a couple of things that you can do here. First off, we're going to go ahead and do square out the 3. So that's pi times 9 times 12 divided by 3. All right, so pay attention to this particular next step. All of these things are tied together. All of these up top in the numerator are tied together by multiplication, all being divided by 3. So basically what I can do is if any one of these two numbers is divisible by 3, I can go ahead and simplify that. So I could either go 3 are going to itself, they go in 3 going in one time, and 3 are going to 9 3 times. Or I could say 3 are going to itself once, and then it go into 12 4 times. So I'm just going to go ahead and take care of this one first. 3 goes into itself 1 time, it goes into 9 3 times. So basically what I'm having here, I'm going to rewrite it, is pi times 3 times 12. That is going to give me 3 times, well, that'd be pi times 36, and you know that we don't need to put pi in the beginning, it needs to come in the end. That would be 36 pi. So, and that's one answer. So if it's 36 pi, we can do 36 times 3.14, and that would give us 113.04, and this would be cubic centimeters. So we have volume equals this particular equation, and volume equals, or this answer, and then volume equals. Note that these are the same. One is in terms of pi, and then this one has been multiplied, and that's a 0 there. Now let's work another example. Always start out with your equation. Volume equals pi r squared h. Again, that looks just like the cone that we just got done with, all divided by 3. So let's look for a radius and a height. Well, they gave us a height of 7. Now, here's a dashed line across the whole circle. So this 4 actually represents the diameter. Okay? It actually represents the diameter. But we don't need the diameter. We need the radius. So if we take half of the diameter, that'll give us 2. Now we can substitute it in. Volume equals pi times 2 squared times 7 all over 3. Now, that's going to give us, let's see, pi times 4 times 7 all over 3. Again, we're going to simplify some more. So, but before we do that, note that 3 will not go into 4 evenly, nor will it go into 7 evenly. So we need to just go ahead and multiply these out. So that's going to leave us with 28 pi over 3. Okay? You can leave it as a fraction, or you can convert it to a decimal, which would be 9.33 pi. Okay? So if we've got it in terms of pi here, then we'll need to go 9.33 times 3.14 to give us another answer that is not in terms of pi, where the pi is calculated in it. So times 3.14, the 9.33, and that gives me 29.31. And we're in feet, so that would be cubic feet, and that would be cubic feet here. So we've got this example, or that answer, and the next answer. So there's those particular work for this particular example. So let's do the next one. Again, we need to pull out a radius and our height, because those are the two inputs that we're looking for. So volume equals pi r squared h all over 3. Kind of made that a little bit too big there, so we'll come back and fix this. Volume there. All right, so let's substitute things in, okay? We've got pi times, the radius is 3, because that only goes from the center to a point on a circle. That's the radius. And then the height is 10. So we've got 3 squared times 10. The radius is 3, okay? All over 3. All right, so let's simplify it a little bit more. Pi times 9 times 10, all divided by 3. At this point, we need to be checking to see if any of these numbers, 3 will go into it. And 3 will go into the 9 3 times. So really what that does for us, it gives us this. It gets rid of our fraction, 1, and it allows us to be able to write an answer of 30 pi, and that is cubic meters. Okay, so that's one answer. And then we've got 30 pi. Well, that's 30 times 3.14. Okay, and if I go 30 times 3.14, that gives me a volume of 94.2 cubic meters. Okay, so there's our two answers. This concludes, well, I got one more. Let's just go back. You've got the volume represented in terms of pi being calculated, and then in terms of pi. So that concludes the second or third one. Let's look at another one, last one. And note that every one that this orientation of the cone has kind of been skewed, or different information's been given. Okay, we can skew this either, or turn it, or rotate it left or right or up and down, but we're still looking for the same bit of information. The radius, where the radius is 2 and the height is 8. Note that it makes a right triangle there. This would be an excellent problem to come back and say, hey, what's the distance of this side from a Pythagorean theorem standpoint? But we'll continue with volume. So volume equals pi times 2 squared times 8 all over 3. Well, volume equals pi times 4 times 8 all over 3. Now, 3 will not go into 4, and 3 will not go into 8, so we need to go ahead and multiply this out. So that is 32 pi divided by 3. Okay? And we can go ahead and convert 32 divided by 3 into a decimal, and we're going to write it to 2 decimal places. So 10.67 pi yards cube, or cubic yards. Okay? So we can take 10.67 pi, and we can go 10.67 times 3.14, and that's going to give me a volume of 33.49 cubic yards. So both answers are needed in order to represent your solution. Okay? All right. That concludes the teaching of the volume of a cone. But please notice that each one of these cones are referenced in a different orientation or given different information, but they're all work the same. Okay? There you go.